There we go. Oh no, is it chat? Is it? Looks slightly different.
It says you're live though.
Okay. There we go.
There you go.
And
do you want your screen to be
no,
shared?
not yet. Just checking to see if we have real people live right now or if they are hanging out. So, all right. And then, all right. So we're going to go ahead and start office hours for today. I've got someone new with me today. I've got Alex. So if you hear me calling out, that's instead of Sai's name. So we've got one viewer at the moment, but I think luckily we had some people come in earlier and leave some questions for me so I could get to them today in case they couldn't make it live. But welcome to week 4. I hope you're all doing well on your projects and starting to code a little bit and kind of getting the hang of just getting things down and then testing them out, making little tweaks, testing them out. And it's all about iteration. And it's really, really about not getting too frustrated at this moment as well. If you can, think back to when you first got started and try to remember how far you've come since we began this a long, long time ago. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting some of these questions. I'm going to go to, Wahid said, I was unable to join the week 2 office hours, and he's a little bit confused about assignment 1, which for some of you, you may be thinking, that was a while ago. That's okay. Not only is it okay to be a little late with some of the earlier assignments, but my guess is for most of you, that first assignment where you just sketch out what you wanted your site to look like, you've completely deviated from that anyway, or at least made some pretty significant changes. I've heard some people in the discussion section asking if it's okay if they completely change their portfolio option, even going from using a template to hand coding. And yes, that's fine. The reason for your sketch is to really get your mind thinking about the layout. And so the question here is, while some people have a really easy kind of familiarity with what sites look like on a tablet or a desktop, thinking about that mobile view can be a lot more difficult. So I'm going to switch over to the computer screen here for just a second, and I'm just going to draw out a little something for you. Oops.
I can do that for
okay. And the one thing I forgot to get going before we started here was my little drawing thing here. Wow. Okay. What I see now is not what I was expecting. So give me 1 second here. There we go. All right. Alex, does it look fine up there?
Yes.
Okay. So what people often struggle with a little bit is coming up with their 2 views. So I'm going to see if I can turn this. See if I can turn my pen on.
Yeah, we changed the shortcuts.
Okay, no problem. You will all get to see me scratch with my fingers. It's not going to be pretty, but it'll be okay. All right, so a lot of times I'm going to change this to something that you can see. Let's go with red. Actually, let's go with black. A good design sketch doesn't use color, right? So we'll go ahead and just go with black. And one of the familiar things we see on a lot of pages is this idea that every page, here's my big square. Ooh, see, I wasn't kidding. I'm really bad at drawing. Have something along the lines of a header, and you'll have a footer. And then these are the choices where people really take their screen size into consideration. So it's not unlikely for in your header that you'll have maybe your little smiley picture right here. Woo, that's not good. Like I said, woo, I'm really bad at this. There's my picture. All right. And then I've got maybe link 1, link 2, link 3, and link 4. And then in your content, you might have one section over here and another section over there. Sometimes the sections are even a lot bigger, maybe 1/3, 2/3, something like that. All right. So on a large screen, this is going to be fine. And in fact, I was just looking at someone's page the other day because I saw they were running for office and I know them. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to check out her webpage. And when I looked at it on my phone, there was an issue because she had this layout right here. And the issue was in the navigation. The problem was, I'm going to use some red here, even though that's true, is my finger was too fat to hit on the buttons. Like I just couldn't quite get it. When I was trying to hit the third one, it kept triggering the fourth one because she had 6 links across the top. So what can we do to kind of deal with that is on a mobile view, you can take some of the things out that aren't necessary. It's always good to think of your mobile view first because then you know that you've got everything you really need. And on the larger views, you just add things. But so when you work backwards, it can be tempting to take things out even though you really need them. But in this case, if we can imagine on, look how much better I'm getting already. Here's my little cell phone right here. We can think about the fact that, maybe we don't need the picture anymore. All right. Instead, we're just going to have the 4 links. It's possible, let me draw this in here right now, that just taking the image alone out will be enough that I can fit 1, 2, 3, 4 links in, and it'll be absolutely fine. Yeah? Just getting rid of the picture. It might also be the case that it's still too big, in which case you could do something along the lines of making it 2 and 2. Now, my guess is some people will use Bootstrap, and there's something I didn't even know it was called this. It's called a hamburger icon. And what you do here is, this is when you get that little box off to the side where it's just doot, doot, doot. And people know to click on it, and then a little menu will pop down automatically for them. Because I was supposed to be doing laundry, I of course didn't do laundry, and I spent the afternoon looking up, hey, are these hamburger menus really accessible? Are they a good way to do things? People like them because they're cool, and as we've been learning, cool things are rarely as accessible as non-cool things. So the hamburger is still a great something for you to practice. It gives you a little hands-on experience, but I was reading more and more how it's not always the best way to go. All right, so hopefully this helps out a little bit. Oh, one last thing. In the mobile view, you would probably not use 2 sections as well. You would probably drop it down so you'd have section 1 on top and section 2 on the bottom. Okay. All right. So hopefully that helps out a little bit with the idea of the mobile view versus the other view. I'm going to head back over to the office hours. Oops. Get rid of this. Okay.
On screen again?
Yep. Okay. Let you take over. So that was a great question, and it went along well with some of the other questions I was seeing on the discussion forum, where people were wondering if I want them to be designing for specific sizes. So, the iPod 5 versus the iPod 6 versus the iPod 6 Plus or the Samsung. I really don't think it's a great idea to try to make your sites pixel perfect to a particular size, because you never know what platform someone's going to be using. And so it's kind of a lot of wasted effort. So if on your piece of paper, you just get this general idea of what the best look is for you, you can set these somewhat arbitrary breakpoints and say, you know what, I really like this horizontal layout up until we get down to about 620 pixels. And then I'm going to switch to something that's a little bit more vertical or up or down. Okay. All right. All right. So this is a good question that, to be honest, I'm probably not going to be able to answer live, but I can look it up for you and make sure I get you the exact answer. So someone had gone, I'll actually select it. It's Alicia. So went off and bought a domain name, but they were charging too much. And so you've decided to go with I think it was GitHub instead. For example, CNAME record, a record that points to an IP address. Ooh, wow, I have no idea what they're asking you for right there. Probably the best bet would be to actually, in the forums, go ahead and put a link to the particular page with the instructions. But I'm going to tell you something right now. When I first started owning domains, realizing, oh, I should really go out and buy a domain for the school's PTO or for myself, I went with the service and decided I wasn't happy with it. And they really made me jump through hoops to switch that name to a new server. So you buy two separate things. You buy the domain name, and then you buy hosting, or hosting server. And so a lot of places try to get you to buy both from the same place, and they make it really easy for you. But later, if you decide you still want to use that name, but you want to host it on a different company, they make it a little bit more difficult. So instead of looking for instructions under the domain name website, look at instructions under the hosting website. They're usually a little bit more clear, and it's not supposed to be that difficult. So if it's getting confusing, go ahead and post that link or something different, and we can take a look at it, because I don't want them having you jump through hoops just to transfer things over. I'll be on the lookout for that. If you could post this question in the week 4 office hours, I'll know exactly where to look to hopefully find it and kind of, if I can, walk you through it. All right. Okay, so I've got here another question about accessibility and particularly about keyboard functionality. I'm going to go ahead and read it so I've got it clear in my own mind. Hi, I've been trying to make my page accessible via keyboard, but I've got an on-click JavaScript event on it. I've set the tab index to 0 so I can get there via tab, but enter does not trigger it. There's too much info on w3.org. Oh, yes. When you try to figure out how these things work, it's not uncommon at all for the help pages to be overwhelming to the point of you don't even want to do that. The first thing I would suggest you do when you're trying to do keyboard accessibility testing is make sure you try it on multiple browsers. I'm trying to remember which one is notoriously bad, but there is one that the keyboard doesn't function well at all. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is try this out on Safari and Chrome. In fact, if you're online still right now, I would love for you to kind of follow up right here and tell me which one you're at. The other thing that we can do is if you send the link, maybe in a CodePen, if you don't have your own domain, this is the kind of thing that's really kind of fun for me and for the other students to be able to click through and see what's going on. So for anyone else who's looking at this, when you set the tab index to 0 on an element, that means the very first time somebody hits tab, it should jump right to that element. And we've seen that before when we've seen the kind of screen reader only skip to main content directories, where you can go in there and if somebody just wants to skip all the main stuff and get directly to the main content, there's this tab option where you can hit tab and then enter and it'll bring you down there. But I kind of have to see the code right there to see what's going on, but I'd be happy to help you. Once again, if you're not online right now, if you post it in this week's discussion section forum, I'm happy to follow up on it and kind of go back and forth with you on that one. Actually, all right. And all right, that's a good question. I'm going to be thinking about it now for the rest of office hours. Okay. All right, so right now we've got no more live questions, which happens to me every week. So I've got the discussion forum set up off to the side. So you're going to see me looking down, and I'm going to kind of go through. Oh, okay, great. We also have Andrea. I wish I knew how to pronounce your name, but is going to link that up. And while that's going on, I'm going to go to one of the forum questions just so I can keep going while we're getting that link. Okay. So where I'm going to go through is the week 4 office hours coding phrase online office hours. The first question was actually one I referred to earlier. It was about preferred dimension sizes. There are no preferred dimension sizes. You can really code on whatever you think looks best, particularly since I'm only going for 2 views. You know, when I'm considering mobile and larger screen, that may actually be more of a large screen tablet view for you. You know, whatever you enjoy working on. But it is an extra if you decide to go for a 3rd view. It is not an extra if you go for a 4th view, and then a 5th, and then a 6th. But it is an extra if you go for 1 additional view over what I required. Okay. The next question I got is from Enzo, and it's about adding a lightbox. And although this question is particular to the lightbox, don't leave me if you didn't do light boxes, because it's actually very particular to any of your extras or any of your add-ons. you're going to find that most of the code that you grab online for light boxes, carousels, modals, they're going to give you accessibility problems, all right? Now, when I talk about making sure your assignments validate, I'm particularly talking about the W3 syntax validator. So I want you going through, running it through the validator, making sure that you've closed all your tags, that you've got the alt attributes, and different things like that. This is what I consider the easier validator. Now, if you run your code through that validator and you still get some errors, it may be the case that it's okay. One example would be if you're linking to some code and it has a funny character in it, such as an ampersand, the validator may get upset. As long as you put in like, oh, this error is just being caused by an ampersand in a URL, all is good. But in this question, we're talking about a Wave WebAIM tool error. And these are vast. It is extremely difficult to come up with a site that passes Wave. I mean, it's really hard. I am not expecting that from you at all. But what I'm loving and what I think is going to really give your peers something to give you, points for is you catching these things and talking about how you found them, if you tried to fix them in any way, and whether that worked or not. Effort is worth everything in this class. It's worth more sometimes than the results. You want to start off simple, but all these little things can add. But we do have just this idea, the missing alternative text for an image and empty link are two errors you're going to see a lot. Because it's very common for you to use these icons as buttons or as links and not have any text in them. And so the problem is it makes sense. The accessibility tester is saying, you've got links, but there's nothing for anybody to actually click. This doesn't make sense. And it does make sense because there's an icon laying over it, but syntactically it doesn't make sense. So it doesn't actually lead to implementation problems, but it does lead to something you to think about. I have seen students in the past actually modify the code to get rid of these errors. To be honest, sometimes it made the final project look a little bit worse than it did before, and so there will be trade-offs. So I don't want you to worry if you have some Wave errors. Do your best. Make sure that you catch them first and have a little list. He's like, oh, yep, I ran it through Wave. These were the errors I got. This is what I tried, and either it worked or it didn't work. Okay. Let me do this right here. Okay. Next question. Oh, that thing there. Okay, so again, we got another question about WebAIM and Wave and testing for things. I do not want people, ruining their lives over a WebAIM Wave error or anything along that line. I know that my colors never pass. Never. My contrast checker is always really bad. I do my best, but it's kind of interesting to see how your font size plus your color can make a big difference. I did put an optional link into the, I believe it was week 4, week 5 content, where there was an article that just came out that talked about color alone isn't sufficient. It's color plus size. And if I can find that link, after I go through these questions, I might try to pop it over there for you to see. Okay. Quick note, I love when people put links to their code for me to kind of check it out. My preferred method is CodePen, just because I know that I'm not about to download something, or I'm less likely to download something dangerous. But regular URLs are great too, but you need to go back and make sure you click on the URL and that it works, because a lot of times you're missing like the file extension or something like that. And the other thing that someone put in here is they included their link, but they wanted to make sure I knew it's a work in progress, not a final thing. Yeah, we all know that. Don't worry about it. You just saw me draw in real time. It was horrible. So anything you've coded up has got to be better than that. So the next question, Oksana said, do we just need to upload our works on week 2 and then week 6 only? In case we have some problems with the code, what should we do? This is a great question. So in this class, like I said, this is a celebration of the things you've done so far. I want you to feel good about what you're creating. I want you to really just worry about your own kind of goals for this class, not so much what you need to do to pass the class. So in week 2, you need to upload your sketches. That's correct. And then in week 6, you're going to upload your final project. However, if you go and check, in week 5, I've made an optional assignment that I really encourage people to do. It's actually the exact same thing as week 6. My plan is go ahead, upload what you have so far, your finished project, hopefully, and get feedback from your fellow peers. Get feedback before the final day, right? That way you can look at what they have to say and fix all those things before the final project is due. So week 5 is optional, but it's a great way for you to post some stuff, have people give you feedback before the final submission. In a lot of cases, my guess is going to be that you will submit the exact same thing week 5 and week 6. But when you're submitting it in week 6, you're going to feel really good knowing people have already looked at this. I'm feeling confident. Time to go review some other people's submissions. Okay. All right. Okay. I'll come over to I'm almost done. So, oh, I thought I answered this one, but I guess I didn't. It must have been a different site. Someone wanted to know about using a modal box. And if you haven't heard of the modals by now, before, which I don't think I really talked to them, that's when you click on, a link or you click on a picture and it kind of pops up as a separate container, a separate portion of the page. So it's similar to that idea of the light box, but with the light box, it would pop up a picture. The modal, it might pop up a form or another page. It's very unusual to see a modal as a separate page. I wouldn't normally count it that way, but if you can convince me, I'm okay with that, or more than anything else, convince your fellow peers that it works. But modals are not usually conducive to clicking between pages as a navigation. It's just really kind of awkward. So I think modals are cool. I hope you find a cool way to incorporate them into your page, but my guess is it'd be easier for you to make 4 very simple pages that use modals rather than one page that tries to do it all at the same time. And then the last question here on the message boards that were posted beforehand was about the language that people are going to use on their sites. You do not need to use English on your site. It can be, German, Russian, Spanish, French, anything you'd like. However, when you submit your URL or you submit your code or you do your screenshot, that needs to be in English. Your explanation to the other students for what you've done so far needs to be in English so that they can, peer grade it. Although I do think it's kind of cool that in people in the introduction section, when they mention where they're from, they may want to exchange names. They're like, hey, mine's in French or mine's in German. And then, the people review it, they'll actually get your jokes as opposed to me who only knows like 17 words of German. Okay. All right. I'm going to head back over to the question over here. Let me select this one. Anya. Thank you, Anya. Let's try this. I'm going to Command C. All right. So and once I make sure this opens, I'm going to switch over to the screen view. All right. All right. And I'm already trying to remember what the question was. Oh, okay. Now I remember. So this was the question about how using tab. So as you can see, when I hit tab, you can kind of see things jumping around a little bit through the page. So I'm going to refresh it one more time. Just so I and when I click on home right there, it is kind of highlighted. Oh, the pen doesn't work anymore. Okay, go over here. You can now see that this home button is in this. I didn't do this with the mouse, so I'm going to hit tab again. Let's do this. going to hit tab again. Let's see if I can do this. Actually, I'm just going to refresh because I have trouble with the drawing thing. So home. You can't really tell as much the vocabulary is active because it didn't have the box. Grammar, syntax, contact. So Anya, is what you're trying to do here is that when I get to home and then vocabulary, you'd like me to, oh, very nice. All right, I'm impressed already. Full credit. I hit tab and then I hit enter. And I was able to go through. Now I've focused on grammar, and when I hit enter, it pops down. So, oops, that's okay. You said it wasn't fully done yet. So at least here for me on Chrome, things are working. I'm not quite sure. You mentioned that you have a JavaScript on click. So if you want to hop back onto the discussion, you can follow up with me, and we can figure out what you think is not working that I think is working. But as you notice, real quick though, I'm going to go and do my lovely inspect element. I know you guys all hate it, but I love it at this point. And I do see that there's an error. And it does say that you do have a JavaScript error. So I'm wondering if the JavaScript problem you're talking about is not so much from the keyboard as it is from the JavaScript. Let's take a look at this code if we can. All right. So the error is $ is not defined. Oh, all right. So I want to take a step back here for a second. I think this is a really interesting example right here. We have on one side what appears to be, fairly straightforward, clean web page. I think any of you could look at that and be like, yeah, I could do that. Then when we get to the underlying code, what we have here is someone didn't just use JavaScript. They're actually using what's called jQuery. And jQuery is a really powerful language that you will want to learn if you're going to keep doing front-end programming. Most people use more jQuery than they do JavaScript. The reason that I teach JavaScript is that it's kind of the basic tenets of jQuery. So if you want to make sure that you understand what a variable is and the fact that with JavaScript you can change things. So I think the error here might not be with the on-clicked, it's the read more. Okay, we'll go through here and see what we can get. So I'm down here to read more and I clicked and that is where it didn't actually go. So let's go ahead and check out this code. Inspect. All right, go back here to the read more. Right here, on click equals show. All right, so there's a lot, wow, there's a lot going on here. So I'm going to take this as an opportunity to kind of walk you guys through a few things if you haven't seen it before. So I'm going to do view page source. And when I do that, or when you're looking at other people's sites, just so you know, it's pretty common that as you go through their page source, you should be able to click on their different links. So if I wanted to see the CSS, I could click right here, and it'll bring me to the CSS page. If I wanted to look at the JavaScript, I could click right here, and it would take me to the JavaScript page. Okay. So here is the function show, which I believe is what you were looking for. You got to go back and forth. I know it's a little bit crazy. So right here, I'm looking. Read more. When I'm on read more, it says on click equals show. And not the right one. I'm right here doing document get element by ID teaser, style.display equals none, and then style display dot block. All right, so since you're here, here it works with the mouse, but not with the keyboard. What I'm curious is, because the one problem is I can't quickly and easily change your code, is I'm curious if you've put an alert in there to see if the show function is actually being triggered at all. Because if it's not being triggered at all, then you're right, it's a keyboard functionality thing. If it is being triggered, but the things that you want to happen aren't happening, then that's an actual JavaScript error itself. Because I did notice that there's a JavaScript error, but it looks like it's from something completely unrelated. Let me go right here. I'm going to do one last thing. I'm going to go back to this page. And Chrome, Firefox, and Edge she's tried it on. So I'm going to do Safari just to be different. I don't know if Alex needs to do anything when I do that. No, okay, great. Oh, let's see. Now, this is what makes web design interesting and frustrating at the same time. All right, if everyone can watch this, I want you to look at 2 places. All right, so I'm going to go here. I want you to look right here on this page, and I want you to look right here on this page. All right, I'm going to start over here. I'm going to start on this one. I'm going to refresh, and I'm going to hit tab. And the very first place we go to is at home. Now I'm going to go over here in Safari. I'm going to refresh it again. And I'm going to hit tab. And the first place it goes to is read more. Are you ready to like pull your hair out yet? All right. So this to me shows that the idea of using the on focus on the on tab, the on tab can still lead to tricky results depending upon which browser you're using. Let me go up here. So what I'm going to do is the following. Oops. Now that I have the link over here, we can go and switch back to the to me, because that's what, you know. Over here.
Switch angles?
Yeah, go ahead and switch back.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to need you to do, Anya, is go ahead and post it here in the forum. So I have a copy of it. And I'm actually just going to sit down, not have to be making chit chat at the same time. Look at that and kind of see what's going on in there. If possible, if you could add that little alert in there for me so I know whether or not those 2 functions are being triggered, that would help out immensely. But this is something there, you know, it's going to be easier for me and for you if I can just sit there and look at the code for a few minutes and kind of go from there. Okay. Although I do see I've got the link here underneath answered questions, so it's not, if you can't stick it in the form, not a big deal. I can still go back and try to recreate it. Okay. But thank you. That was a really cool question for me to play with and be like, oh, it works. No, it doesn't. Now it works. Okay. Oh, and now there's a screen in front of me. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back over here and look at some of the other questions I've been getting. Let me go back to unanswered question. Oh, sorry, I have another question. I'm having a really hard time with positioning elements. For instance, I'm having trouble adjusting my banner image to be responsive to the browser window. Any tips? Adjusting my banner. Okay, so positioning I actually think is one of the most difficult things to kind of grab. Actually, I'm going to hit select right here. And hit done. Oh, and it looks like she's included maybe a link. Well, I'll figure that out in just a second. Let me see if that actually works before we try to click over there. If you want to go ahead and click over to the screen. And if you still post questions, I'll be able to look at it. But the Coder Dojo. Oh, cool. I love seeing the different pages. Okay. So it looks to me like what you were hoping to get done is actually have the, let me go back to answered questions so I can see. Positioning the banner image to be responsive to the browser window. Now, was there something particular? Is it not being as wide, as long, centered, up and down? The positioning, when we do something with banners, the first thing you want to decide is, are you going to go with fixed, absolute, or relative? It's unlikely you're going to do static. So I'm going to click on here for just a second, and I'm going to inspect element. Okay. I can tell you what those errors are too, by the way. Super great, because other people have them eventually. And I'm going to say, all right, so appears that your banner is simply an image that goes across. There is, just so you know, there is an image responsive Bootstrap class that you can try using. If it wasn't working before, I think it would. You can go down and we can fix this first error down here. The error is Bootstrap's JavaScript I can't say this, requires jQuery. All right. this is an error that a lot of people are going to see, and a lot of people just ignore it because it doesn't really affect their page. But I can tell you what's going on here. I'm going to go back to Elements. Or sorry, go back here, View Page Source. And one of the things that you want way down here at the bottom, actually see if you have it up at the top. Nope. Way down here at the bottom, right at the bottom of your screen, you have this little link to Bootstrap. You will also see a link to Ajax. So if I go up here one more, open tab, people are going to drive. This is in my template. I do know from my code pen. I'm going to go to the Bootstrap. Oops. Okay. Bootstrap.com. Getting started. I'm going to go over here to Basic Template, and I'm going to make this way bigger. All right. And what you will see is that you will see something that links to an absolute link that links to Ajax jQuery.min.js. A lot of people don't notice this link. You absolutely want to put it in, and you want to make sure that you put it down at the bottom. Okay, not at the top, but at the bottom. So that's the first thing you want to look at when your Bootstrap isn't acting the way you want it to look. If Bootstrap doesn't look the way you want it to look, that's the CSS files. If it doesn't act the way you want it to act, that's usually the JavaScript and the jQuery files. All right, so let's go back to over here. Let me go right here, back up to here. Questions. When I reduce the window, the banner is still pretty long width-wise. Okay, so there's two ways of looking at this. The one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, once again, inspect. That's all I seem to do, you guys. If you look up, I am up here at the very top. Right? I'm way up here at the top of my inspect element. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little big screen, small screen right here. It gives me a chance to be able to kind of go through and see what it looks like. So I can say, oh, let's see what my page is going to look like. I can click. Maybe I can't. Let me undo this. It's not happy with me, but typically, usually, I can click on these things and I can change the size. But my whole computer just froze on me. All right, let me try it again. So I'll go back over here. Sorry, everybody, give me 1 second. Do this again. Alex, any idea why the mouse isn't letting me click?
Let me try.
Okay. Did I have it going when I'm not supposed to? This is an awesome way to eat up 10 minutes of office hours. So. I managed to really, yeah, go ahead and refresh. All right, so let me try this instead. I might be.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Drag this to the top. Sometimes there are things at the bottom. It doesn't look like it. Oh, what's this? Is that normal?
Not really. Let me escape. All right.
Okay.
Still there? All right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to copy this. We're going to close this out. When in doubt, just completely kill the screen. All right. All right, so we're back. I'm going to inspect. I'm going to try this again and hope it doesn't mess everything up, but I'm going to click back and forth. You can see I can go from, here's my big screen view. I can see what it looks like responsive. And I can say, hey, what will it look like on an iPhone 6 Plus? And what will it look like on an iPhone 6? All right, so we can do one more. Let's do a Galaxy S5. All right, so you can also change these numbers, directly, but and I'll check out the iPad. All right, so on all of these, the image looks really good. All right, so I'm going to get out of the mobile view, go back and click on this again. And let me tell you, the first time I accidentally clicked this, I could not figure out how to get out of it for like 3 weeks. I was looking at everything in tiny little views because I couldn't figure out how to undo it. So when we're here, I do see that when we make the screen really small, the picture isn't completely responsive. I'm going to go ahead and inspect this one more time. You've got the image. All right, so the image is center block. I'm not seeing too much here as far as size, so I'm going to add one more thing in here. I'm just going to try this with 95%. All right, it does not look to me like you've actually added a particular width in your style sheet yet, and that might be just what you need to do. So let's see what happens now when I resize it. And if I refresh it, oh, well, when I refresh it, that gets rid of anything I typed into inspect element. So with, I don't know if you want 95%, 100, but now you can see it gets bigger and smaller. So I'm hoping that's what you were looking for. As far as lengthwise, you can go ahead and make sure you've added that width to it. Go into your style sheet. Let me go back here for 1 second. Doesn't look like you've done much as far, it looks like you want to look, it looks like it's all bootstrap coding right now, and no coding on your own part. So go ahead inside your style sheet. You can go ahead and center that center block class and add a width of whatever width you think would work best, the 95%, 100, etc. Okay, I hope that works. Now, when I help people and it doesn't work, please let me know and remind me that I tried to help you with it once already, because it's not uncommon for people to ask for help and then the teacher helps them, and then when they ask for more help, the teacher gives them the exact same answer again, which is not helpful at all. Okay, Alex, I have no idea if the screen is on me or on the screens right now.
On the screen right now.
All right, we can probably go back to me.
Okay.
Yep.
All set. Sign in.
All right, thanks. I'm kind of curious. I have 7 viewers. I'm always curious if it's my mom and 6 other people. Okay, so let's go ahead and close this one up. We've got about 20 more minutes. We still have some more questions. Time to get some more questions. One is a question that I plan on spending some time on later this afternoon. I don't remember where it was posted, to be honest. I believe it was in general discussion, and someone wanted to create a fade-in function. Okay, and I don't know if you remember the image gallery. Actually, let's go ahead and we'll switch back to the screen. I'll tell you about the question first. I'm in the general discussion, and the question was about creating a fade-in function. And I've been searching and experimenting for quite some time now. What he would like to do is be able to fade in using some JavaScript. So let's switch to the CodePen code that he sent. Okay, go ahead and switch to the screen. We good, Alex? Yeah. Great, thanks. Let me take out the code I added. All right, this code might look familiar to a lot of you, where you go and you kind of click through the pictures. Mine were all of the dog bacon, like, hey, you could go back and forth. So the question is, could we do like a little fade in? So if we start off with it at opacity 0.5, and we set it up so that when we go back and forth to it, we can actually kind of do like a fade in or fade out. So I've added some code here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here and get rid of everything else. Fade in usually has to do with kind of changing the opacity of things. Not always, but that was the first thing I thought of. Okay, and so I played with this, and this is not the right answer, so don't get too excited, Adam. But it's a start. And what I've said is, you know what? I want to do a transition. And basically, over the course of 1 second, in a very linear manner, I want it to go from whatever opacity it used to be to an opacity of 1. So if I go back here, and I'm going to make this smaller again so we can see what happens. When I click on the new picture, you can see that it went from kind of faded out to faded in. Now, here's the problem. It's now 1. And so the question is, how can you have it go back so that when you click, it starts as 0.5 and then fades into the 0.5? We can play with some things here. It's not going to be happy. You can do image dot style dot opacity equals 0.5. Again, semicolon. You can see, oh, yay, it faded in so nicely. But the problem is, how do we get it to go back to the kind of faded out at the start? I've been looking around because I want to see if I can give you an example that is using just JavaScript to do this. My guess is that it'll require looking into something where when something becomes active, you put it back to 0 so that then it can become 1. To be honest, though, my guess is that most people would actually use jQuery. jQuery has a really nice fade in and fade out function. So I'm going to be looking at that. I wanted to go ahead and give you some of this code just so you could play with it, because it's always, to a point, it's more fun to play with it yourself. And then it's really nice for someone to just give you the answer. So I'm going to attempt to kind of give you the answer on that one if I can. And I'll put that code right in the discussion section while you're waiting for me. But my guess is we're going to want to use some sort of jQuery on that. Okay. I had a question back in the Google Hangout, so we'll go back to me. All right. So the question is from Karen, and she wanted me to talk a little bit more about the hamburger icon, the whole collapsible opening and closing menu, whether or not it's accessible or not. Now, I'm not even sure if accessible is the greatest term as much as the user experience isn't as good as they would like it to be for everyone. We are now, fairly comfortable with HTML and CSS, and you've had the chance to look at a lot of pages. But there are still people who are out there and browsing the web where if they come to your page and they see that hamburger icon, they don't know what it means yet. They don't know that if they click on that, something will open and close. Okay, and even then, when you click on it and open and then close it, always remember there's some people out there, they've got maybe some shaky fingers, and when they're trying to open and close it, it's just not responding to them as well as they would like. So I'm not saying it's bad to use the hamburger. I'm just saying it's definitely under discussion right now. If you were to, go online and do a search for hamburger, I think what I really Googled was collapsible navigation accessibility. Whenever I'm about to do something, I just kind of type that in, because really, I mean, it's always going to be a trade-off. You have the accessibility of if you try to squish too many links into a tiny page where they're like, that's not super accessible either, right? So if you're going to have something where you're either going to have to make the choice between squished up or not squished up, and it can be collapsible, just make sure that whatever you're doing, the people who go to your page, it's going to be really obvious to them what they need. Because I have seen some where instead of being the hamburger icon, which I think it's being replaced by something, I'm showing my age, a lot of times you'll see the gear, right? I have relatives who never hit the gear. They're really worried that gear is going to do something. It seems more powerful, if that's the right word, than for what they want to do. And so you just want to make it really clear to people when they come to your page what it is they're looking at and the best way to find it. What I was thinking about doing when I'm looking over redoing my friend's page was doing the hamburger icon at the top, but then in the footer, replicating the navigation bar at the bottom as well as 4 nice big, or I think it's going to be 6 nice big blocks that people can very easily see. All right, so it's very much trial and error. It's making decisions and then feeling comfortable, like, well, it might not be perfect, but it was the best I could come up with to get to the greatest number of people. Okay. All right. Let me do a quick look back here. Just see if we have any new questions. All threads. All right, let me see a few other questions. I'll just talk to you about them from in here because I don't think you need to. Some people have been asking about withdrawing from the course. So the way Coursera works now is if you don't finish your assignments, you don't fail. You just have the option of joining in with the next cohort that comes along. Now, the thing with the capstone is that they're not going to be offered quite as frequently. I believe the expected date of the next one is going to be September 5th. To be honest, that might change by 1 week because September 5th is also the first week of class for me here at Michigan and the first week back of school for my kids. And I might be able to give more time and energy and consideration to the capstone if I push it back 1 week, just so it's not overlapping with what's going on here in Michigan. But you can rejoin, leave at any point and rejoin without having any extra costs. In my mind, I'd always wait to say I'm going to leave because who knows, maybe you'll sit down at some point and be like, I've got 12 hours. I'm just going to rip this out, and you might be surprised at how much you can do. And at the very least, you'll still be able to access all the questions that are coming in right now. So yes, you can leave at any point and rejoin. It won't be an issue. But I would kind of hope people do it later. The next thing I wanted to mention is that I do have, I'm not sure which week it's in, but I do have a thread called validation issues. So if you could make sure that, oh no, that's staying here because I don't know where it is. If I could find it, I'd have you switch. I do have a new forum called validation issues. It'd be great if people could try to post their validation issues in that thread because otherwise it's natural we're going to get a lot of the same questions posted over and over again rather than, once or twice. Make sure there's nothing over here. All right, more questions. Let me see what I can find. Oh. All right, so there was a question I wanted to talk about, which was, it came back to those validation issues. People have been asking some really interesting questions about validating templates and validating frameworks such as Bootstrap as if it's different than validating other code that's done from scratch. And it's actually the exact same thing. The difference is that the code you create from scratch, it's really pretty easy to fix most of those errors because you know what the code is doing. But when you validate something using a template, you really have to start looking. You have to dig around. You have to figure out, okay, here's this code they're talking about. I don't even know where it's located. But it is the exact same thing, whether you validate hand-coded Bootstrap 3, Bootstrap 4, or using somebody's template. All right, let me go back to one of the live questions. Okay, so another thing I've been reading different options about, when you have a drop-down menu, is it good or bad if the title or top link is also a link? And I know exactly what you're talking about. In fact, I don't know if I still have the page, but let's go ahead and go live for a second onto the screen. Let me type a thing in here. Lines. Let's see if I can get to this. Give me 1 second to type up a URL. Image study to you. Okay, if you want to switch over to the screen, we can try. So the question is, when you're making these navigation bars, sometimes you're going to want to have drop-down menus, correct? So I don't even know if this site will have it, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to tab through. So if you see, I've got About and Academics. This one isn't going to do it for me. Let's try UMSI. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, I knew I'd find one. So I have my navigation, my kind of high-level navigation, where I have programs, zoom in here for you guys, research, iCareers, news and events, alumni, different things like this. And each one of these links opens up a drop-down link of other places you can go. And so one of the questions is should programs itself be a link? Should news and events itself be a link, or should it just be, and you can't even really tell when I go on here. Let's go to the directory. Should it be a link, or should it just be like a heading that you can't click on? From what I understand, people expect to be able to click on it. Like if you can't click on that first one, people will sometimes just get confused and think, oh, well, then I can't really click on anything else underneath it. Wow, that was, so as you can see, I'm going to see if I can even do this, Alumni Society Board. people like the idea that anything that is a link is you can click on. It does make it a little bit harder because, as you noticed, when I clicked here, I didn't really mean to click. All I wanted to do was have it hover down, and when I accidentally clicked, it went away. So it's kind of a difference of, I think it's a little bit more accessible when it doesn't actually link to anything, but just, people do often expect that when they click on that, it will take them somewhere. So it's kind of a give and take as to whether or not you do it. But like you said, everything has an opinion about whether or not you should do something one way or the other. We can switch back. And it is funny that I just went to the U of M page because I just read an article about how horribly, I shouldn't say these things, but I do, about how low people rank university websites because they're usually going there for very specific things. But if you go to university website, the main links are rarely anything most people care about. And one of the top things people don't care about is alumni. And yet if you go to the sites, that's one of the main links on a lot of different pages. So make sure that if you are moving on and you're going to become more of a professional web developer, you have to remember that there's what you want to show people and also what they are there looking for and what they want to see. And you really got to kind of balance that. All right, let's see. You can stay on. You don't need to close over. I'm going to do a quick look to see if I see any other threads in the office hour link. You know what? I'm curious. I haven't read this question yet, and I probably shouldn't read it live, but I'll go ahead and read it live anyway. Ooh, actually, there's a lot of code. You know what? I'm going to have to look at that code. Never mind. I think I'm probably going to just randomly talk for the last 2-3 minutes to finish this one out. So as I mentioned, we're at the end of week 4, or actually at the beginning of week 4. Here in America, it was 4th of July weekend, so we're all kind of off with what we've been doing. And I've been camping for a week, so I'm even more off. But I did beat my husband at the Robin Hood archery competition, and that's really the most important thing to take away from any family vacation. So you're at this point where you're coding and you're getting stuck on things. I really want to remind you of the never spend more than 20 minutes stuck on a single thing. If you're stuck on something and you're really stuck and you're not making any progress at all, you need to walk away. Either switch to something else that you're working on as part of your portfolio, or just completely stop, post it in the forums. Can't guarantee that anyone will get to you right away, but you should stop. Rarely, if you've been stuck for that long, will you make progress by sticking it out for another 2 or 3 hours. So instead, get the little things working. Don't be too concerned if the big things aren't working. What you really want is you want something that you can submit for week 5. That's the optional assignment. And you want to go in there and say, oh, hey, can anyone give me any feedback on this? And don't forget, the way this course is set up is that you can see other people's submissions. You don't even have to submit yourself necessarily, because that's what this is about. It's you can go through, look at what other people did, see how they did it. Now, there's always this kind of feeling of, oh, well, then someone can just come in and steal my code, or take everything that I've done, or I feel guilty because I am taking something that someone else has done. My guess is that at this point in the semester, most of you will agree that taking somebody else's code is never as easy as just taking somebody else's code. Trying to figure out which classes they were using, which IDs they were using, all these little finding out what typos they had. It's never as straightforward. So it's always a great learning process to go and kind of poke around at what other people are doing. Good luck for this week. I'm hoping that you'll get lots of progress in. And if you don't get a lot of progress in, that you're really happy with everything you've already done so far this week. Thanks for everyone who stopped by and gave me the live questions. This was much easier than 2 weeks ago when I had to randomly talk about stuff. And I will make sure I go back in to the discussion forum, week 4 office hours. I'm going to go back later today and go through them and answer any question I didn't get to, and follow up with some of the questions from today, particularly with that whole show more and things like that. All right. Feel free to follow up if my first answer doesn't make sense. Thanks.